Hello summoners and welcome back to another ProGuides video. My name is Nathaning and today we'll be talking about our predictions for the worst champions going into patch 11.19. While there are a ton of buffs and nerfs next patch, it can be pretty difficult to actually know what's going to change and what's going to stay the same. Sometimes a seemingly huge nerf just brings a god tier champion down to the S tier, and there's still plenty OP. Sometimes they don't even move at all. Other times what seems like a minor 2 base AD reduction causes a champion to drop off the rift. So we're here to steer you away from what we think are going to be the worst champions in each role this patch. Number 1, we'll be starting off with the top lane Jace. Objectively speaking, Jace is actually a pretty decently strong champion, but he makes this list for a couple of reasons. For one, he's really hard to play well. You have to know how to combo right for the optimal damage and when to disengage at the right time to win trades. He's also very resource hungry. Jace requires basically permanent jungle attention. He's very vulnerable to jungle ganks since his trading pattern requires you to go in for hammer form, so if your jungler isn't there to counter, you're basically guaranteed to lose. And dying just once usually is enough to put you behind for the rest of the laning phase. And once you're behind, you'll find that Jace is pretty much useless. Without having the damage to threaten whoever you're laning against in the side lane, they're free to run you down. When you group up, the mediocre poke that you have when you're weak doesn't add up to much, and when all the team fights happen, you just get blown up. Avoiding the champions on this list is a good starting point to rank up, but if you're actually serious about climbing, you should check out ProGuides.com. Right now, you can get a free coaching session if you download our mobile app. There you can find a ton of challenger coaches and players to play with and watch courses from the pros for free with our free trial. All you have to do is download the app and sign right on up. This won't take long at all, so take the first step of reaching your dream rank. So stop spinning your wheels on your own and get on the fast track to higher elo today. Now let's get back on topic, shall we? Our second top laner is AKALI. Like Jace, AKALI's a champion that, in general, just isn't a great pick outside of top level players. Being an assassin means that if she's not strong enough to burst down targets, she's probably not going to be that useful. When playing mid, a good AKALI can definitely out-trade opponents in most matchups and use that to get their lead. But in the top lane, that doesn't happen nearly as often. The shorter mid lane allows you to trade with your W, then hang back near tower for safety. In top, the lane is much longer and it leaves you vulnerable to all-ins once your shroud is on cooldown. The result is usually bruisers running you down and smashing you out of the laning phase. The one argument that you can make for AKALI top is that she counters tanks really well, since they give you free lane to farm, and then you can beat them at all stages if you go Riftmaker, but then again, champions like Fiora and Camille just exist, and they do a lot more with the free lane anyway. Now, for the jungle, our first champion that we're going to be talking about is Zed. Last patch, RYZE did some of their famous let's make random champions into jungler style of changes, this time targeting Zed and Talon. Talon fell nicely into the spot actually, and is pretty viable in the role. Zed, however, did not. Still, that hasn't stopped the decently high population of players that think that they can make it work. Let me be the one to tell you to stop trying. It's not good, and you're just griefing games, unless you're playing normal and trying to have fun, to give it a shot. The main reason Zed flops is because he just absolutely has no dueling strength. In mid, this is fine because he can just poke and trade with bursty combos. But in the jungle, when you have champions like LUCIAN, Olaf, and Xin Zhao running at you, you're forced to concede every single camp that they contest. His ganks are also very mediocre. Even overextended opponents don't have much to fear. Post 6's ultimate does give a little bit more of a kill potential, but that alone isn't nearly enough to make him viable in this role. You just end up being way weaker than you would be if you were Zed mid, and you lack the power that you need to consistently one-shot squishies in the mid and late game. Our other jungler to stay away from this patch is QIYANA. And don't be fooled about all the people talking about how OP QIYANA is because she can clear jungle in 3 minutes. Yeah, the clear speed might be impressive, but if she's so overwhelmingly strong, then why is her win rate just sitting above 41%? The argument can be made that QIYANA always looks bad statistically when you look at all the elos and is meant for higher elo, but when you narrow down the search to Plat Plus, it barely moves up to right over 42%. And Diamond Plus, 43%. It isn't that good. And the very minor buffs that she's getting this patch definitely won't change it. Like Zed, the strengths that make her a mid laner just fall flat in the jungle. The main strength that she normally has is her roams. The combination of bursty damage and CC allows her to go with her jungler to fight off the opposing jungler or go for ganks on the side lanes. But her all-in strength isn't that strong, especially early. So, like Zed, she just ends up being bullied by much stronger duelists in the role. Now, for the mid lane, we have RYZE. We're all pretty familiar with the nerfer champion that is good in pro play, but already performing really bad in solo queue type of changes, and he's just one of the victims of that in this patch. The issue with RYZE is that he just needs too much time to come online. The one thing that RYZE has going for him is that he has a point-and-click CC to set up his jungle ganks, but so do plenty of other champions. And those other champions don't need to be babysat like RYZE does to do well. Without a jungler holding his hand, his relatively short range and mana problems make RYZE an easy target for most meta mid laners. You just end up being bullied, falling behind, and never really getting the chance to scale up and carry fights. Our other mid lane to avoid is Lucian. We've had Lucian solo lane as one of the worst champions to play on pretty much every single patch. At this point, it just kind of feels like a broken record, but the main thing is he's just way too popular still. More than 10% of all Lucians go mid lane, and most of them are basically just griefing games. At this point, it might just be a big ego pick. When you pick Lucian mid, you do it because it feels good to bully your lane opponent, but the second that you fall behind, you're completely useless. You can't lane 1v1 against your opponent because they can just all in and kill you. You can't side lane later on into the game. You don't provide any type of utilities since the champion is just meant to pump out damage. I get the appeal because it feels really great to stomp your lane, but why pick such a super high risk champion when you could go for something that does the job easier, more consistently, and is more forgiving when you fall behind? I really recommend something like Pantheon instead. Like I said, Lucian is what the analysts call here an ego pick. Basically, it's a champion that people try to pick to look cool, when in reality, they're losing a lot more than they would be if they just picked something that we're capable of going for. I'm sure that we all have friends who think they can just make some crazy plays on Yasuo or insane flashy hooks on Thresh, so you probably know what I'm talking about. And that brings us to today's question of the day. What champion do you think is the #1 ego pick? Let us know your answers in the comments down below. Now moving things down to the bot lane, our first pick is AKSHAN. This is another case of a really strong champion, but only when it's played in the right role. AKSHAN mid has become an incredibly strong pick, leading him to one of the highest ban rate champions. In a 1v1 situation, he has really strong trading, able to chase down and kite opponents for heavy bullying. His roams are also super effective since his E gives great mobility and damage for skirmishes and ganks. But in the bot lane, these strengths fall very flat. Most of that mid lane trading power comes from AKSHAN's range advantage, but compared to other marksmen, he doesn't have a range advantage at all. So when it comes to poking back and forth, he'll probably almost always lose out. And when it's time for extended fights, they are not that much better. Pretty much every other meta ADC will beat him out of there, without a huge support difference. Since he can't bully lane, he can't wave control, and you can't use his roams to affect the map, you should probably just play him mid or probably not play him at all. Our second ADC is RYZE. This spot was sort of a close call between him and Kalista, but the thing is, Kalista isn't objectively that bad. When played well, specifically when you're duoing with somebody like Thresh or Leona, Kalista can actually be pretty strong. But RYZE is just overall a really bad pick to go with. Yeah, he's super lane dominant, but that does fall off really fast as the game goes on. His poke hits hard, but for all-in teamfights, he doesn't pump out nearly enough DPS to kill beefy frontliners. Prior to this patch, he was already at the bottom of the barrel in terms of solo queue performance, but RYZE has had him nerfed due to how much presence he has in pro play, so he'll even be worse off. In our analyst's opinion, RYZE won't be worth playing until they make on-hit or crit build viable again, so you have some form of guaranteed scaling on him. Bot lane is just too heavily influenced by the rest of the map for early game champions to be consistently good at the role. Now for our supports, we'll be leading off with Pantheon. The reason that he makes this list is simply his extreme feast or famine nature. When played in a kill lane with somebody like Tristana or Draven, Pantheon can actually stomp pretty hard. But if you don't win lane as him, you're basically useless. A single point and click stun doesn't really compare to the utility that the regular supports bring. And even if you do win the bot lane, if the rest of the map is in shambles, Pantheon isn't the best type of support that can 2v5 a game with the fed ADC. Again, he just provides a single target stun. If you want to play a carry champion, go for somebody like Pyke, or better yet, one of the super lane dominant mages like Zyra or Brand. Finishing off our list, we have Set. At least with Pantheon, you have the option to feast or famine. When you lock in Set support, you're pretty much saying good luck with the 1v2 to your ADC. The champion just doesn't provide any pressure in lane. It's like locking in Tahm Kench, but at least TK has his tongue for a very minor bit of poke. As Set, you either sit back and do nothing, or run at the other bot laners, get kited, and lose all of your HP for nothing. His ultimate is definitely a strong teamfighting ability for appealing high threat targets, but that just isn't absolutely worth making your ADC 1v2 in the lane for the first 10 minutes of the game. Besides, champion like Lulu and Janna appeal just as well, if not better, while also being able to buff up their carries. That about wraps things up for our worst champions on patch 11.19. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did, be sure you sub so you never miss out on our meta guides and you're always in the loop on what the best picks are. Remember, let us know what champion you think is an ego pick down in the comments below. Oh, and one last thing, don't forget to check out our Discord in the description box below, where you can go ahead and discuss League further, or just hang out and be a part of the community, or say hi to me. I can't wait to see you guys back in the next video, but until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and have a wonderful day. Peace.